Every celebrity interview right now is broken.
Completely.
That's the core finding from this huge stack of sources we've just gone through for you. And frankly, reading the evidence, there's just no other way to see it.
Not at all.
We are watching what the research calls pretty much across the board a generational run in what not to do.
It's a complete system failure. And that's really why our mission today is to go beyond just the awkward 15-second TikTok moments.
Right.
We want to dissect the entire modern celebrity media ecosystem.
Right.
Because the problem isn't just one bad interviewer.
No, it's structural.
It's the collapse of late night shows, the rise of what you could call the anti-journalistic celebrity podcast, and just the absolutely impossible position we've put working journalists in. It's a systemic rot.
Okay, let's unpack that right away, because the gap between what we should expect, the professional standard, and what we're actually seeing it's genuinely staggering. Just think about the ideal scenario. You picture an award-winning actor, someone who has put months, maybe even years of their life into a role.
Poured their soul into it.
Exactly. They show up to a press junket, they're exhausted, sure, but they're also genuinely excited to talk about the crafts, the emotional journey, the themes of the project. That's the conversation the audience actually deserves.
And then reality hits. They sit down and they're met not with, intellectual curiosity, but with questions that are so bizarre, so unhinged.
Yeah.
They feel like they're purely designed to just bypass substance entirely and leap straight into spectacle.
You mentioned the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 example that one of our sources brought up.
Oh, that one was wild.
Here you have a major movie promotion, a serious conversation is happening, and the interviewer just stops everything to ask the celebrity, do you know what this is?
While holding up this weird item it's just called a LeBou.
A LeBou. It's baffling.
And what does that have to do with anything?
What intellectual connection does that have to a horror film or the actor's performance?
Yeah.
Absolutely none.
Or the other example we saw, an interviewer asking a veteran journalist if they're having a brat summer.
It's just an immersion into pure absurdity.
It is.
The whole expectation of a real thoughtful conversation has been completely liquidated. The one single overwhelming goal of these multi-million-dollar promotions is now just generating these tiny clips to go viral on TikTok.
And that's the real tragedy here. It's not just bad journalism.
No.
It's an active rejection of substance. The questions are engineered to fail. Fail at communicating meaning, fail at respecting the craft, and ultimately fail to respect the audience's intelligence.
Let's put this current chaos into some historical context, because it wasn't always like this.
Not at all.
We have to rewind for a second to what the sources are calling the old guard, a time when celebrity interviews actually had, real substance.
Right.
Back then, movie promotion was seen as an extension of the storytelling itself. The goal wasn't just to maximize profit. It was about enriching the audience's experience.
Absolutely. The whole point of the interview was to give you depth and context you couldn't get from just watching the movie.
Yeah.
To give you a deeper understanding of why the film existed, what the creators wanted you to feel, what the ideas were behind it.
And the interviewers of that era were the back.
They were. They acted as these serious, intelligent guides between the artist and the public, coming in with thoughtful, layered questions that open the door for real, expansive conversation.
And what's so crucial to understand is that the very nature of those questions guaranteed they wouldn't go viral.
Exactly.
Which is the perfect sign of what the intention was back. They were too complex, too nuanced, required way too much attention span to be weaponized as short-form content.
Precisely. Look at that specific example one piece of research pulled up, a question focused entirely on cinematography and natural lighting.
That was
The interviewer didn't ask about a relationship rumor. They dove deep. They said, I think Chibbo is the greatest cinematographer of all time, and I'm wondering how natural lighting works for you as an actor. Does it affect your performance whatsoever?
That is genuinely incredible. I want to just sit with that question for a moment because it's such a powerful relic.
It really is.
It tells you the interviewer did their research, they knew the visual language of the cinematographer, and they were engaging the actor not as a celebrity but as a technical collaborator in the art.
Yes.
That level of complexity, the fact that they even know the cinematographer's name,
Yeah.
it shows the goal was an intellectual discussion about craft, not a cheap soundbite for click.
That was the standard. And for a long time, that worked for everyone. But as the research clearly shows, that whole dynamic started to erode the moment social media took over.
As one source put it, the internet fried everyone's brains.
Pretty much.
And what's so fascinating is that the decay didn't start in the press junkets.
No, it started somewhere much more visible.
It began in the accessible, family-friendly space of the late-night talk show. This was the first major crack in the facade.
If you think back to the original late-night format, a celebrity would come out, sit on the couch, and the host would spend, 10 10, 15 minutes asking them questions.
Right, about their new movie, some personal stories.
Exactly. It was lighter than a serious press junket, sure. It was evening entertainment.
But even that relatively light format became too heavy for the short attention spans being driven by YouTube and later, TikTok.
The network saw the attention shifting away from the conversation part.
So to compensate, to fight for eyeballs, the hosts made this dramatic, almost desperate pivot away from dialogue and into pure absurdity.
And that's when the format changed to be, as one source said, half conversation and half whatever the hell this is.
Yes.
You had people like Jimmy Fallon turning the interview into a variety show with games and weird stunts.
Celebrities dangling from the ceiling.
Exactly. Just ridiculous time-wasting skits. It was this frantic effort to generate anything but an intellectual conversation.
And the most undeniable signal of the decline was where the attention went, which half of the show got clipped and posted everywhere online.
Never the conversation.
Never the discussion about the film. It was the games. It was the celebrities making fools of themselves. The algorithm was telling the entire industry very clearly spectacle was winning and conversation was losing.
It's just the brutal logic of the attention economy. Why would you spend an hour watching Jennifer Lawrence talk about her acting process?
Right.
When you can just watch a 15-second super shareable clip of her eating spicy wings and screaming in pain.
The visceral entertainment value of the spectacle just completely crushed the slow intellectual value of the conversation.
And the industry, desperately trying to survive, took that painful lesson and ran with it.
So that decline in late night was really just the prelude. The real chaos, what our sources are calling the viral vortex, that started when the traditional media format just cracked wide.
And the studios found a much more chaotic, but apparently more effective way.
Right. The main culprit here, according to the sources, is this fateful meeting of social media influencers and the studios that just uncritically embrace them.
About 5 or 6 years ago, studios started noticing this new thing at premieres and award shows. Certain people, they're influencers, not journalists, would post these raw, unpolished videos of them talking to celebrities, and these clips would get tens of millions of views.
And crucially, these influencers weren't operating under any kind of professional constraint. They were treating red carpets like their own content playground.
Totally. Often ignoring the actual movie being promoted to do some niche inside joke thing. But for the studios, it didn't matter. It was a staggering amount of free.
And that realization just flipped a switch in the industry. The whole metric changed overnight.
The quality of the interaction, the depth, the relevance, the professionalism, it all became completely irrelevant.
All that mattered was viral, pure and simple. It didn't matter that some journalists said the influencers were harassing celebrities and being a nuisance.
As long as they generated clicks.
You could feel the whole atmosphere shift. One anecdote that really stuck with me from the research was that clip of Billie Eilish at an award show.
Oh, yeah.
She seemed genuinely dumbfounded by how many non-media people, just influencers and content creators, were clogging up the carpet. It was a visible change in the environment.
And here's where the studios made what the analysis calls the fatal mistake. They formalized it.
Instead of just letting it happen, they leaned in.
They started actively handing them microphones, giving them scheduled interview slots. These were people who, in many cases, had no real understanding of how interviews work, zero journalistic training, and sometimes struggled with normal human interaction.
And suddenly, people who had spent years studying journalism, honing their craft, they were forced to compete with someone whose only goal was to run around with a camera and ask the most bizarre questions imaginable.
Which brings us to the journalist's humiliation ritual. This is one of the most tragic parts of this whole.
It really is.
We need to remember, working journalists are the ones in the trench, dealing with weekly layoffs, abysmal wages, and the constant flood of...
And yet keep their job to make sure the publications survive. They're forced to play along with this new viral style.
They have to chase the cringe against every professional instinct just to make sure they get invited to the next press, get that precious FaceTime with the cast.
And this pressure cooker environment explains why you get veteran journalists, people who absolutely should know better, asking questions that are so unhinged they feel like part of some sick competition.
They're just desperate to generate one clip the studio can use.
Let's get into the specific examples because they perfectly demonstrate this desperation.
They really do. The questions so often cross the line of basic decency, search of that niche viral. We have the widely cited example of an interviewer asking an actor if Reed Richards is the first capital daddy you
for a mainstream superhero movie.
And then there's the one that's even more jarring. A veteran interviewer asking a guest, what's it like calling Leonardo DiCaprio daddy?
I mean, we have to just sit with that for a second. This isn't a fan on Twitter. This is a professional in a studio-organized setting.
As one source put it, Are we as a society genuinely okay when these sorts of sexually charged, completely irrelevant, and frankly humiliating questions are now standard?
The answer doesn't even matter. The awkward reaction is the commodity.
And the desperation gets even worse when the questions aren't just inappropriate, they're laughably irrelevant to the celebrity they're talking.
The classic example is the interviewer asking Austin Butler, who was there, promoting a project where he's literally playing Elvis if he was Team Conrad or Jeremiah from The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Zero research, zero relevance. It's just pure, blind desperation, throwing darts and hoping to hit some niche pop culture reference that might land with a Gen Z audience.
It's a total abdication of journalistic responsibility for a quick hit of relevance.
And the zero research examples are maybe the most damning part of it all. Take the Tom Hiddleston.
Oh, that was bad.
The interviewer suggested Hiddleston was a big fan of a sourdough recipe blog, completely oblivious to the fact that his very famous ex-partner is Taylor Swift.
The failure there is twofold. First, they didn't do the most basic entry-level celebrity research.
Right.
And second, they replaced that failure with this attempt at a quirky, personalized question that just fell flat because it showed maximum clueless.
You can almost see the resignation on the actors. They know they're not there to talk about their work. They're there to react awkwardly to trivia they don't understand.
And that awkward reaction, that cringe, that became the blueprint.
Which brings us to the Wicked Press. It's the perfect summation of this whole phenomenon. It shows how one viral moment can dictate an entire industry's approach.
That press tour was the synthesis of the emotional manipulation we're talking. That first clip of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande crying in an interview went viral.
That was it.
Every single other interviewer decided that was the goal.
Yeah.
That was the blueprint.
The objective immediately shifted to generating that specific high-drama emotional content over and over. The result was just an endless stream of hyper-emotional, borderline manipulative questions, purely designed to get the actors to cry talk.
The questions became so focused on forced intimacy. How much do you love each other, really? Describe the deepest moment of emotional connection you shared on set.
It's just so disrespectful to the film, which deserves a serious discussion, and to the actors who have to go through this emotional endurance test, being asked to relive vulnerable moments on demand for a 15-second clip.
And the studio rewarded it by inviting more of it.
And this whole environment is just dripping with unprofessionalism down to the accessories. You see the tiny little microphones a lot of these interviewers are using now. That's a subtle signal that this is not a serious journalistic endeavor. It communicates from the start that this is casual, content first, and usually self-serving. It's like they're trying to be the star of the TikTok right alongside the celebrity.
Which, according to the sources, genuinely irritates the guests.
And we can't forget that bizarre Chris Evans clip. It perfectly illustrates the linguistic breakdown that this pressure causes.
The word salad.
The interviewer asked him about playing a part closer to home and then said, "Did you feel like it was going to take? I don't imagine you get a bathroom on your phone trying to go viral."
It's a linguistic catastrophe.
It suggests a complete absence of media training, basic preparation, or even just the ability to form a coherent thought under pressure. It's not even clear they were trying to be viral. They might have just been completely incapable of speaking clearly.
This kind of sustained pressure, it's not just frying the audience's brains, it's frying the brains of the journalists who are supposed to be guiding the conversation.
So, if the press junkets and red carpets have devolved disorganized, humiliating content,
it makes perfect sense why celebrities are deciding to skip that chaos entirely and head straight for the podcast booth.
Right. It sounds casual, appealing, and most importantly, it sounds safe.
But here's where the analysis gets really in, because the research suggests this podcast pandemic is in many ways far more harmful than those rapid-fire brain rot interviews.
That's the core danger. On the surface, a podcast interview sounds like the perfect alternative. It's relaxed, it's casual, it's long form.
And it would be.
It would be if the hosts had genuine journalistic talent, critical thinking skill, and a willingness to challenge their guests. But instead, too often, the hosts just want to be the celebrity's best friend.
Let's use the cultural and commercial powerhouse that is Call Her Daddy as our main case study here.
We have to.
We need to understand the deep, complex, and pretty messy history of this show. A history a lot of new fans like to forget because it established the show's entire business first, journalism zero ethos.
It's vital context. The show started back in 2008, created by two friends, Alex Cooper and Sophia Franklin.
And the content was radically different from what it is now.
It was loud, chaotic, and focused on what was described as locker room talk for girls. The research calls it very, very, very inappropriate. You can't deny it was compelling.
It became an immediate phenomenon. The numbers exploded.
which drew the attention of Barstool Sport. They offered the creators their first big deal, about $70,000 a year.
Seemed like a lot to them at the time.
But it came with a huge catch. Barstool kept all the ownership and all the rights to the show.
So the show keeps getting bigger, one of the most listened to podcasts in the world, thriving on that raw best friend shock jock dynamic.
But by 2020, the tension was just unbearable. The podcast was making millions for Barstool, but the hosts were still stuck on that $70,000 salary.
So they finally went to the head of Barstool and demanded a new, fairer.
And Barstool, knowing what they had, came back with a surprisingly generous offer, a pay raise to $250,000 each, plus a clear path to getting full ownership of the brand after just one more year.
To Alex Cooper, that sounded like an incredible deal.
Yeah.
Massive pay bump, future control.
But Sophia Franklin, supposedly influenced by her boyfriend at the time who said they deserved way more, she was resistant. She didn't want to sign.
And this is the pivotal moment. This is what informs the current lack of journalistic back.
Before the conflict could be resolved, Alex allegedly went behind Sophia's back, met with Barstool alone, and signed a deal that gave her full ownership of the Call Her Daddy,
Betraying her co-host and friend.
The outcome was brutal. Sophia got nothing. The partnership, the friendship, it was over.
And Alex Cooper rebranded the show, shed the original style, and turned it into a celebrity interview machine, eventually landing that massive $60 million Spotify.
And that history of betrayal and maximizing click and comfort over friendship or journalistic integrity, crucial. It established the show's one goal: maximize access and celebrity comfort, not journalism.
And that lack of journalistic talent is the main critique of the current format, a format that's now replicated across the industry.
The host gets the biggest celebrities in the world, A-list, but instead of actually having a conversation, the host just sits there, strokes their...
It's a pact of non-aggression. The host has no journalistic abilities whatsoever. She won't press her guests on sensitive topics, won't ask tough follow-up questions, even if the celebrity starts spilling genuinely controversial stuff.
Instead, she'll just diggle, relate the answer back to herself, or immediately move on to the next pre-approved topic. And look, she never claimed to be a journalist.
Right.
But when you're trusted with these influential and often delicate conversations, you need a basic ability, fact check or critically.
We saw this failure to engage so clearly during the interview with Jamie Lynn Spears.
A very high stake.
She came on the show to give her side of the story about her sister Britney's conservatorship. This was incredibly sensitive material.
And Jamie Lynn was emotional, explaining her perspective, and the host was just sitting there like a log. Zero pushback, zero critical engagement.
And that's the core failure. Jamie Lynn was making claims that directly contradicted many of Britney's public statements and court documents.
A normal journalist wouldn't necessarily start a fight, but they would be obligated to mention those to question them.
That's accountability.
Instead, the host just moves on to the next pre-written safe question, guaranteeing the celebrity is never challenged.
And the problem isn't just with high-stakes controversy. It's a fundamental inability to have a normal, sustained conversation, which makes the format useless for actors who actually want to discuss their work.
Take the interview with the Oscar-winning actress Charlize Theron.
Another perfect example.
Theron was there promoting The Old Guard too, and she was talking about the challenges of revisiting. She was getting philosophical about exploring new depth, saying it was complicated in that sense, but good
That answer is so rich. There's so much to work with there. A skilled host could have asked follow-ups for 10 minutes about character arcs, themes, anything.
But the host's reply was just, okay, you're hanging out of a helicopter.
And immediately jumps to a new, unrelated question about an actor.
There was zero acknowledgement of the depth in Theron's answer. The host just couldn't transition naturally, which is interviewing 101.
So instead of a conversation, it feels like this jarring, chaotic, big game of 21 questions with harsh cuts and no flow, where the host is just waiting for their turn to speak from a list.
And the irony is the show's tagline is creating conversation.
But the style is literally the furthest thing from a conversation. It's an exercise in ego stroking and avoiding facts.
And this style is so dangerous because it's now replicated across dozens of other celebrity podcasts. The audience is led to believe they're seeing an authentic, deep, real conversation, like the celebrity's just chatting with a friend.
But it's almost always one big calculated performance.
It gives a huge, safe ego boost to the celebrity and insulates them from any real scrutiny. They get to control the narrative.
Now, this systemic decline and this preference for celebrity comfort isn't just in the podcast world.
No, it's bled into traditional television.
We've seen this deeply bizarre transformation in daytime TV, which brings us to the trend of replacing seasoned professional hosts with celebrities.
Right, we're talking Drew Barrymore, Jennifer Hudson, Kelly Clarkson, all undeniable superstars.
But it seems like Hollywood just collectively decided that if you're charismatic and talented at acting or singing, you automatically have the separate professional skill of hosting a daily talk show.
And based on the research and the results, that premise is just fundamentally flawed. Hosting requires listening, transitioning, steering. It's not just star power.
Let's start with the critique of The Drew Barrymore Show. Drew is an American sweetheart, and the show has these lovely, heartfelt moments.
It does.
But as an interviewer, the research suggests the experience can be pretty rough for the viewer. She often spends nearly half the time talking about herself, pivoting back to her own experiences.
Saying things like, oh, I went through something similar.
And that self-focus is compounded by this inability to maintain professional distance. She tends to fangirl over the guest, which is sweet, but it's not effective.
And she physically makes the conversation uncomfortably close by literally sitting on top of them and holding their hand. She's trying to create intimacy, but it often just makes the guest uncomfortable.
And if you look at the ratings or the cultural impact of a lot of these new celebrity-hosted shows, it starts to make sense why they aren't catching on like, say, Prime Ellen once did.
No one wants to sit and watch a celebrity have their butt licked for 30 minutes.
That kind of pandering just makes for boring TV. The stakes of the conversation are gone when the host is afraid to ask anything remotely challenging.
And according to the sources, the most striking example of conversational failure, despite immense personal talent, is The Jennifer Hudson Show.
She is an ego winner. An absolute superstar.
But she is consistently highlighted as an ineffective host.
The clips are painful to watch. She'll ask a question and then accidentally interrupt the guest mid-answer to add her own commentary.
Or she'll repeat the question in a slightly different way because she's completely forgotten she just asked it. It just suggests she's not deeply.
The interview with the singer Keisha is a classic, painful example of this. Keisha mentioned that early in her career, she was an extra on the set of Dreamgirls,
which is a serious Bible film for Hudson, who starred in it.
Keisha said she made $120 for the work, and there was this incredible, organic, personal connection right there, a shared experience they could have explored.
But instead of pursuing that and asking, wait, what was your experience like on set with us, Hudson just let Keisha basically
And after that deeply personal story, Hudson immediately, with no transition, moved on to a completely unrelated, pre-approved topic.
It just shows the critical failure. They're not listening or engaging. They're just waiting for the next card.
And this whole shift, whether it's in the podcast booth or on the daytime circuit, it's a direct result of this industry-wide pandering.
It feels like the entire entertainment industry is terrified of upsetting celebrities who provide the content.
And that leads to the total loss of the cheeky but necessary questions from the past that were designed to get something out of them. An insight, a truth, a real story.
So you get this severe disconnect. Audiences say they want celebrities to be held accountable, to be real, to be asked deep questions.
Yet the content the industry is delivering is the exact opposite. Boring pandering, designed to keep the celebrity happy so they'll come back for the next press.
It is worth mentioning, as the sources did, that there seems to be one major exception.
Kelly Clarkson.
Kelly Clarkson. She seems to have found the right mix. She combines professional interviewing skill, listens, she follows up with genuine fun and enthusiasm. She reminds the analyst of prime 2015 talk shows.
So her success suggests the format isn't totally broken. It just requires the host to be a professional interviewer first and a celebrity second.
Okay, so we've tracked the source of the rot, from the late night couch turning into a game show, to the viral vortex of the red carpet, and finally to this insulated, celebrity-friendly podcast.
Now we have to turn to the highest stakes. What are the human, the ethical, the societal costs of this collapse?
The human cost on the creative side is huge for the people actually making the movies and art we consume.
Right.
Promotion is now seen as a humiliation ritual by the actors themselves. Think about that quote the sources pulled from social media about a star of an Oscar contending. This star recalled breaking down in tears at the end of a press day because there were so many interviews and the questions were so dumb.
You spend 2 or 3 years pouring your soul, your emotional labor, your craft, your intelligence into a project,
only to be asked if you know what Skibidi Toilet is.
For those who don't know, that's a reference to this surreal, incomprehensible Gen Z content on TikTok. Being asked about it is the ultimate symbol of brain rot, replacing genuine inquiry.
That must be absolutely exhausting, deeply frustrating, and just so demoralizing for an artist.
The research emphasizes this isn't about celebrity worship.
No.
It's about recognizing the immense, difficult work that goes into making a film. The interview process should have been an intellectual reward, a chance to elaborate on that work. Instead, it's become an endurance test to see how many brain rot questions you can handle before you break.
But the real danger, the one that goes way beyond exhausted actors, is the lost accountability in the media.
Right.
If interviews are just content factories and the gatekeepers are easily bought off by access and influencers dominate, the crucial question is who's left to ask the uncomfortable but important question?
That is the critical ethical failure we have to address. What happens when high-profile public figures only address their scandals or ethical failings on shows where they have full control?
Shows where they know there will be no pushback, no challenging of inaccuracies, no difficult follow-ups. This loss of a critical, balanced space where they can actually be held accountable is genuinely dangerous for how we talk about celebrity, power, and ethics.
We've created a system where the celebrity is completely insulated. They get the ego boost and the promotion without any of the risk. It's the ultimate control of the narrative.
And what's fascinating is the financial miscalculation the studios see. They are betting billions on this idea that viral views immediately translate to tickets.
But the consumer backlash suggests that's a faulty equation. For a lot of moviegoers, the constant forced exposure to annoying or bizarre clips like those from the Wicked press tour actually had the opposite effect.
Those clips actively turn them off from going to see the movie.
Cringe is not a reliable commodity. Quality, substantive promotion, even if it's short, has to respect the consumer's intelligence and the art itself.
Which leads to the crucial question of adaptation. If the old model is dead and the current model is manipulative trash, what is the way forward? Is there proof that the interview format can adapt without just becoming a clout-chasing circus?
Yes, absolutely. We have to look at the sustained, massive success of a show like
Hot Ones is the undeniable model.
Why? Because the format has a great gimmick-eating, progressively hotter chicken wing that naturally creates visible, shareable spectacle. But crucially, the host, Sean Evans, actually listens and actually follows up.
The structure takes the pressure off the celebrity to be zany or emotional for the camera. They're just reacting to a physical stimulus while talking about their life and craft in depth.
The genius is that the physical challenge is the spectacle, which frees up the conversation to be deep and respectful. The celebrities clearly enjoy it, and it proves you can adapt and create viral content without lowering the standard of conversation.
You don't have to demand an Oscar winner talk about a sourdough blog.
At the end of the day, the core conclusion from all these sources holds up. We deserve better questions, actors deserve better conversations, and films deserve better promotion. It's a demand for quality and respect. It's that simple.
And the final implication we have to hold on to is this profound industry disc. The audience wants celebrities to be held accountable, to be asked deep, insightful questions about their work and their power, yet the industry is giving us the exact opposite.
Boring, pandering, or manipulative nonsense, all in the service of that transient, meaningless 15-second clip.
So what does this all mean for you, the person who buys the ticket or clicks the link?
I want you to actively reflect on this. When was the last time a press junket actually made you want to see the movie? Not just because you saw a trailer, but because the conversation itself enriched your understanding of the project.
Think about that answer.
If the answer is a long time ago, then we collectively need to start demanding what an effective and substantial movie would look in this age of the short. Something that respects both the artist's craft and your intelligence consumer.